First, my colleague from Pennsylvania, Ms. Mary Scanlon, described this, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this right. So the resolution that you are here to testify in support of, you have described as unserious and disappointing, right? This is the bill that you want your colleagues to vote for.
What I would tell you is the Senate's attempt at matching the balanced budget resolution of the House fell far short, which was disappointing. And I'm encouraging, as we move forward in the process, to the meat and potatoes of reconciliation, which is the policy-making side, that the House budget targets guide that. But you are correct.
I may be
was
missing
disappointed.
This. I'm not on the budget committee, so I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. We're going to vote on a resolution today, right? This is the resolution that the Senate passed. That hasn't changed?
That's correct.
Okay, and that bill is a bill you described days ago as unserious and disappointing, right? It's not, it's not a complicated, those are your words.
No, but I don't dispute those words. In
so
fact,
that-
I
I just
love,
wanna make
every
sure
time you say it, I want to say amen. Inside my Southern Baptist part of me wants to shout hallelujah.
Well, I don't know why you're voting for it if that's the case.
Because there are two parts to the resolution in the Senate. There is the part that keeps our fiscally responsible framework for the House, which I implored my colleagues in the Senate to adopt in the upper chamber. They failed to do that.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is, when we get to the combined reconciliation bill and the policies that will ultimately effectuate the changes,
I understand.
that's what the House should drive that.
I understand how you're rationalizing your vote on this. I'm just making sure it's clear for the record, because I don't want to be there any ambiguity. I'll just again quote from this article. It says, quote, this is from The Hill. Arrington criticized the budget plan for creating $5.8 trillion in new costs. That's the bill you're asking us to vote for, right?
I said 5.8 trillion in new cost with only a mere $4 billion in spending reductions that are enforceable.
Got it. But
because I have a hard time believing that we're going to do more than what is enforceable and that which we are bound by law, which is why the House is superior. The House is pro.
Again, I recognize rationalizing the vote, just trying to clarify your perceptions of this bill.
Of the Senate's version.
But the Senate's version is what we're voting on.
No, we've got two. That's I admit.
That's what we're here to meet about.
I admit it can be complicated for some, and I'm not being demeaning, but let me explain the complication away and simplify it. The House has a set of instructions that are fiscally responsible, and it's a complete plan.
Oh,
the Senate
see. Are those binding on the Senate? Those instructions?
They are not binding.
They're not binding.
That's
correct.
Interesting.
Okay, so yes.
And that's the concern I expressed.
I hear you, which is why I'm confused that you're voting for the bill. This is a very circular argument. On the one hand, you get where I'm coming from, Mr. Chairman. You blast this bill as unserious and disappointing and as increasing the deficit, blowing up the deficit, $5.8 trillion in new costs. Then you make the case that, well, in fact, there are instructions that the House has dictated, and therefore that should ameliorate anybody's concerns about this bill. But of course, those instructions are not binding. So I don't get it. I hear you.
You're expressing the concerns that I expressed. I think very accurately.
Then why not vote
and
no on the bill?
There's still the concerns I have. So the more you talk about it, the more I think, my gosh, Mr. Neguse and I actually agree with the concerns that if the Senate's resolution were to guide the reconciliation process, I think we end up at a far less responsible outcome.
Join me in voting no. It sounds like you're a no vote.
I'm concerned for the reasons you articulated.
Well, I would encourage you, if that's the case, to join House Democrats in opposing the bill. It seems like you're almost there. So anyway, I'll move on. I want to talk a bit about, I love having the opportunity to have the budget ranking member and the budget chairman here, so we can talk a bit more about the broader
Why don't you pick on him a little bit?
So, Mr. Arrington, you posted this on X about a year ago. This is in August of 2024. It's a tweet, and it says, "Nobody knows how to get an economy running like President Trump. You still believe that?
I believe that President Trump's economic agenda.
You still believe that? It's
Yeah.
not, yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Still, you still
And if
believe-
past his prologue,
Got it.
we're going to have a red-hot economy like
past
we
his
did the
prologue,
first.
Let's talk a bit about the present. So
Yeah.
what do you describe an economy running well as? How would you describe that? What
I
barometers would you use?
would say
Would a recession count? Is that
I would say growing the GDP by almost an entire 1% in 2 years after deregulation, tax cuts, work incentives,
it's
good
interesting
energy
that you
policy.
used 2 years. Because
No,
it's-
in 2
I know,
years
I
prior to
understand.
COVID.
It's interesting that
Yeah.
you've used 2 years as the marker because, of course, as you know, every economist in the country is now predicting that we will have a recession if we are not experiencing one already. I don't know that most Americans, like, I'm not an economist, but I think most Americans, whether they're in West Texas or in Colorado, they wouldn't describe a recession as an economy running well. I mean, does that make sense? You don't disagree with that? Right?
I think the American people who voted overwhelmingly and every swing state in support of this president said, I don't want any more of the unbridled spending and failed economic policies of the Democrat Party, with all respect, and President Biden. And the inflation that came with it, and the increased debt that came with it, and the depressed economy that came with it.
It sounds like you're defending a recession. I don't get it, honestly.
Oh,
like, let's just level with each other. Let's just level with each other.
I'd love to.
Okay? If a Democratic president were in office
Yeah.
and we're taking actions that were causing a recession, you're going to tell me with a straight face you describe that as the economy running well? Let's be serious with each other. You know that's
First
not
of
the
all,
case.
there's not a recession. There is the political courage to reset an unfair trade dynamic with the United States, which I hope you would support.
Okay, so
right?
stock market collapsing,
Yeah.
bond market in turmoil, recession on the horizon. None of that to you constitutes an economy that isn't running well. That's
No.
a fascinating.
It's
That's a fascinating position to take. You know what's
Yeah.
interesting? Okay, how about this? How would you describe a 1,000-point drop in the stock market? How would you describe it?
I would say the stock market rises and falls. It's more sensitive to changes.
Rises and falls. Okay,
It's
so
more
here's a
sensitive to. Can I just complete my thought?
You answered it. You said rises and falls.
Changes in policies.
Sure.
And a tremendous shift, I think you would agree,
Yep.
with the policies of the last administration.
Okay.
And where this president wants to take our
Is
country.
it a big deal or not? I mean, or filibuster.
Which one?
A 1,000-point drop in the stock market. How would you describe that
I
to your
think
constituents?
I think it's going to be a much bigger deal when the stock market over the long run improves along with this economy
Okay.
and along with the worker wages.
That's not what you were saying last year. That's
tell
not
me-
what you were.
tell me what I
explain it to
said
you.
last
So
year.
last year, here's a statement.
Yeah,
A press
please.
release from the House Budget Committee. Chairman Arrington, on the drop in financial markets and the fiscal decline of the Biden-Harris administration's economy. When the stock market dropped 1,000 points several years ago, you rushed to bemoan President Biden's actions and the economy that he was presiding over. You condemned it. Now the stock market drops 1,000 points every day for the last week, and you claim it's the economy running well. Do you understand why that would be a tough argument?
Yeah,
for the
but I
American
can
people to
explain it to you.
understand?
Yeah, I can explain it to you. Because you had consistently bad fiscal and economic policies that resulted in persistently bad economic environment for the American people, mainly 40-year high inflation. So this is year after year, quarter after quarter.
Got it.
And we're talking about the first 2 or 3 months of Trump's administration, where we're transitioning from that failed agenda.
I get it.
To one that's going to put us in a place
I get it.
of
Okay.
a stronger
So
position.
you want to give him some time. I get it. So 1,000-point drop in the stock market, bond markets collapsing, recession on the horizon. At what point, let's say there's a depression.
Yeah.
At that point, would I be able to get your commitment that you'd say, I don't agree with the president's policies? How far are you willing to go? It's an honest question, because we are likely to have a recession here, again, if we're not experiencing one already in the next couple months. How much pain are the people of West Texas willing to tolerate? Is a depression enough?
Well, I'm glad you asked me about my people, because I can speak about West Texans. They're thinking about the next generation of farmers and ranchers.
Sure.
And they know that the current conditions and relationship that is just completely and totally unfair will bankrupt the farmers of the future. Secondly, the
It
people.
sounds like the answer is there's no limit.
The
You
people,
haven't answered the question.
the people of West Texas will tell you, the day you wake up and you have to beg another country for your food and for your energy, like we have to beg for our drugs to be made and computer chips, you tell me what you would pay to avoid that for your children. And I know you love your children as much as I do. You tell me that there's no courage in this town to do what the president's doing. And we all recognize there's some transition and discomfort and pain. No one's denying that.
What you describe as a transition and discomfort,
Yes.
economists describe as a recession.
Yeah, well.
Job loss,
Yeah.
prices going up,
Yeah.
401ks vanishing. That's what I mean, I understand the words you're using,
Yeah.
discomfort, transition.
Yes.
Those don't mean much to the people of Colorado that I represent, who are going to be on the front lines of ultimately being impacted by the disastrous
How did they
conduct that
feel
the
about the
president has taken.
discomfort of the 21%
Let's
regressive
let's talk about
inflation tax? No,
Let's
how
talk-
did they feel about that? I shouldn't be asking you the
I
question,
hear you,
but
Mr. Chair, but I always love our give and take.
okay, okay.
Let's talk about that.
All right.
I'd like to call attention to the gentleman that you're now into almost 12 minutes. And we have a lot of other people willing to speak.
I understand, Madam Chair. I'm respectful. And I
Call to your, excuse me, just want to call to your attention.
I will
Thank
not
you.
belabor it, but I do want to talk about trade, because you referenced it, Chairman Arrington, and I think you would agree trade is an important
Yes,
priority for the future growth of our economy.
100%.
Okay. Do you agree with the president's tariffs?
I agree with the reciprocal trade policies
Sure.
that treat the products of other countries
not a
the
gotcha.
same they treat
It is
our
an-
products.
Part of the reason why I said
Yes,
going
I
a long
agree.
time. Yeah,
I agree with the
It's a simple
reciprocal
thing.
trade. Yes,
Exactly.
yes,
So you agree?
yes.
Okay. Do you agree?
100%.
Do you agree with President Trump's tariff formula? Like, do you think it makes sense?
Reciprocal trade formula.
The formula that he articulated earlier this week. Do you believe that it makes sense?
Yes,
Okay. Can you
Yes.
explain it?
yes.
Explain it to us.
The products from the United States that go into countries, the top 20 of which have twice the tariff and non-tariff barriers, actually just the tariff barriers, a 2-to-1 basically tax on our products. If you're talking about agriculture, it's 3-to-1. Those are the top 20 markets that we work with and compete with.
Sure.
And so,
You understand that most economists, multiple economists,
Yeah.
have described the formula that was adopted as nonsensical, as making no economic sense. And of course, the reason is because there are a variety of different contributors to trade deficits. You concede that. It's
like tariffs, non-tariff
Of course, and
barriers,
including capital
taxes,
flows, including supply
currency
chains,
manipulation. Yeah, there's
comparative advantage, geography. So the formula they constructed is not one that's been defensible by virtually any economist.
I
But
disagree with that
apparently
completely.
It meets the chairman's definition.
Absolutely. It
Okay.
makes total sense
Got it.
that you would take tariffs, VAT and border taxes, technical and quota barriers, manipulation of currency, stealing our IP. At what point are we going to agree as Americans, forget party politics, when are we going to agree that we're not going to let other countries take advantage of this nation and to hurt our manufacturers and
Have you
and
seen
farmers?
how these tariffs have been received in West Texas?
Man,
In
these,
some of the press
our
recently?
guys get the sacrifice on the front end for our future and for their children.
Okay.
My guys are all in to support this president.
Well,
And
the
I say
articles-
that unequivocally,
The
unequivocally.
articles I'm reading,
Yeah,
Fox, West Texas, tariffs expected to hit West Texas coffee drinkers, construction companies. West Texas soybean farmer expresses thoughts and concerns about upcoming tariffs. I understand cotton farming is big
yeah.
in West Texas.
The biggest in the world.
Biggest in the world. Wall Street Journal, tariffs unraveled. Cotton prices. Boy, I mean, the tune that you're singing and that your colleagues are singing seems awfully different than certainly the farmers in my district that I represent. As you know, I represent a rural district in northwestern Colorado, and I can tell you that these tariffs are going to hit our community very, very hard. I want to just ask one last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And because I know I appreciate the chairwoman's indulgence. My last question is simple. I appreciate that you engage in intellectually honest debate and your willingness to come before this committee. And I assume you'd agree with me that debating these matters is really important for the American people.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well,
I
am,
enjoy
Madam Chair.
too.
I'm getting to it. What was that?
I enjoy the real debate as well.
As do I. Leader Jeffries has proposed to the Speaker that they debate on the floor the merits of this bill. Do you agree that the Speaker ought to just do that so the American people can better understand the bill?
I believe debate is an important part of the democratic process.
Will you tell the Speaker so that he could accept Leader Jeffries'
I'll share
invitation?
that and send your love and respect.
All right. Might I yield to the gentlewoman from New Mexico?
Thank you, Representative.
Time coming up
I
after,
wanted to just follow up, thank you.
after we have a Republican speak. You will have your time, Ms. Leisure Fernandez. Mr. Jack, you're recognized.